The morning sun slipped gently through the tall glass windows of the Golden Crown Hotel, filling the grand dining hall with a warm golden light. The clinking of plates, the quiet sound of coffee being poured, and the chatter of guests created a soft morning melody. Among the busy waiters moving from one table to another was Emma, a young waitress with tired eyes but a gentle smile. She wore a clean white uniform, though the fabric had grown a little thin from too many washes. Her black shoes squeaked slightly on the polished marble floor, but she moved quickly, carefully balancing plates of toast, eggs, and steaming cups of tea. For Emma, this was just another morning of hard work, another chance to earn enough to pay for her mother's hospital bills. Emma had been working at the hotel for almost a year. It was not an easy job, but it was one she valued deeply. Her mother, Mary, had fallen ill months ago, and the treatment was expensive. Emma had sold almost everything at home, including her old books and the small gold chain her father had given her before he passed away. Now her only hope was her job at the Golden Crown. She worked double shifts and often skipped her own meals just to save a few extra coins. Yet despite her exhaustion, she always tried to greet guests with kindness. She believed that even a small smile could make someone's day better, even if her own days were often heavy with worry. That morning felt just like any other. The hotel restaurant was full of wealthy guests, businessmen in suits reading newspapers, families enjoying breakfast, and travelers scrolling through their phones. The smell of freshly baked bread and roasted coffee filled the air. Emma kept her focus, taking orders and remembering every detail. She had learned to stay calm even when guests were rude or demanding. Her co-workers often admired her patience. "Emma," called Mr. Harris, the head waiter, from across the room, "Table 6 needs more juice. Quickly!" "Yes, sir," Emma replied, hurrying to the counter. She poured orange juice into 2 tall glasses, placed them carefully on her tray, and made her way to the table. Her steps were quick but quiet, practiced from months of experience. As she served the juice, she noticed a couple entering the restaurant. They looked different from the usual guests. The man was tall, with sharp features and neatly combed dark hair. His suit looked expensive, probably custom-made, and his watch shone like silver in the morning light. The woman beside him was beautiful, dressed in a soft blue gown, but her hand rested gently on her stomach. She looked like she was in the later months of pregnancy. Emma smiled politely and guided them to a corner table near the window. "Good morning, sir, ma'am," Emma said softly. "Would you like tea or coffee?" The man nodded. "Coffee for me, tea for my wife, please." "Of course," she said, writing it down quickly. She didn't know their names yet, but something about them made her curious. They looked like they carried stories in their eyes, stories far from her simple world of waitressing and worry. As Emma moved back to the counter to prepare their drinks, she noticed the woman holding her stomach again, her face tightening in discomfort. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She thought about asking if she was all right, but decided to wait. She didn't want to seem intrusive. Minutes later, Emma returned to their table with the drinks. "Here you go, sir, ma'am." "Anything else for now?" she asked. The woman smiled weakly. "Thank you. I'll be fine," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. Emma nodded politely and walked away, though her instincts told her something was not right. A few minutes passed. The soft music from the lobby piano mixed with the quiet sounds of breakfast. Suddenly a loud, panicked voice broke the calm. "Call the doctor! It's happening now!" The entire dining hall fell silent. Emma froze in place, her tray almost slipping from her hands. Guests turned their heads toward the corner table. The tall man stood up, his chair falling backward, his face pale with fear. His wife was breathing heavily, gripping the edge of the table, her face twisted in pain. Emma's heart pounded. She glanced around and no one was moving. Some guests whispered, others simply stared. The hotel staff stood in shock, unsure what to do. Without thinking, Emma rushed forward. "It's okay, ma'am, just breathe slowly," she said gently, kneeling beside the woman. She placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Sir, we need to move her somewhere more comfortable." The man looked at her with panic in his eyes. I don't know what to do. The doctor was supposed to meet us later today. She wasn't due yet." Emma turned to another waiter. "Call an ambulance, now!" Her voice was firm and calm. The waiter ran off quickly. Emma guided the woman to lie down on the long couch near the window. "Try to stay calm," she whispered, holding her hand. "Help is coming." The woman nodded weakly, tears forming in her eyes. The man stood nearby, pacing anxiously, his hands shaking. Emma tried to comfort both of them. She remembered how her mother once helped a neighbor during an emergency birth years ago. She tried to recall every detail. A few minutes later, the sound of sirens echoed from outside. The paramedics rushed in, and Emma stepped back to give them space. They quickly checked the woman and placed her on a stretcher. The man followed, still in shock. Before leaving, he turned to Emma, his eyes full of emotion. Thank you. You helped when no one else did." Emma smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Anyone would have done the same," she said softly. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't true. Not everyone would have stepped forward. As the ambulance doors closed and the siren faded into the distance, the restaurant slowly returned to its routine. But for Emma, nothing felt the same. She stood near the window, staring at the road where the ambulance had gone, her heart still racing. She didn't know who that man was, but she had a strange feeling that their paths would cross again. And when they did, her life would never be the same. Emma stood frozen for a few seconds, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to calm her racing heart. The hotel dining hall was still buzzing from what had just happened. Guests were whispering, waiters were confused, and the manager was shouting orders, trying to keep everything under control. But even as the noise returned, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the man and his pregnant wife. She hoped they would be all right. She didn't even know their names, yet something about the way he looked at her before leaving stayed in her mind. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Emma went back to serving tables, cleaning up spilled drinks and smiling at guests, but her thoughts kept drifting back to that moment. When her shift finally ended, she went to the locker room, changed into her worn-out jeans and faded sweater, and checked her phone. No new messages, no missed calls, just another quiet day in her small, simple world. She took the bus home, watching the city lights flicker through the window. Life in the city moved fast, but Emma always felt stuck, caught between hope and hardship. When she reached her tiny apartment, she found her mother sitting by the window, knitting slowly. "You're home early today," her mother said with a weak smile. Emma nodded. There was a small emergency at work. A woman went into labor right in the restaurant. Her mother's eyes widened. Oh my, was she okay? Emma shrugged. "I think so." The ambulance came just in time. She tried to sound calm, but her mind replayed every detail. The man's voice, his panic, the way he shouted for help. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept hearing his words echo in her head. "Call the doctor." "It's happening now." She didn't know why, but it felt like the start of something bigger. 2 days later, Emma was back at work, moving quickly between tables when the hotel manager approached her. "Emma," he said in a serious tone, "Mr. Blake wants to see you." She blinked. "Mr. who?" "Mr. Adrian Blake," the manager replied. "He's the guest from the other morning, the one whose wife went into labor." Emma's stomach tightened. "Is something wrong?" No, the manager said, waving his hand. "He just asked for you personally." Emma hesitated for a moment, then nodded and followed him to the private lounge on the top floor. The elevator doors opened to reveal a quiet space with golden lights, soft music, and the smell of expensive perfume. At a corner table sat the same man she had seen shouting that morning. He looked different now, calmer but still powerful, like someone used to giving orders. When he saw her, he stood up. "You must be Emma," he said with a small smile. "Please sit." Emma sat down nervously, unsure of what to say. "Sir, I hope your wife is okay," she said softly. His eyes softened. "She's fine. We had a baby boy." His voice carried pride and relief. "I wanted to thank you personally. You were the only one who acted fast that day." Emma smiled shyly. "I'm just glad she's all right." Adrian studied her for a moment. "You didn't just help, you took control when everyone else froze. That kind of courage is rare." Emma didn't know what to say. Compliments from rich people always made her uncomfortable. They lived in a world she didn't understand. But Adrian continued, "I run a few companies in the city. I need someone honest, calm under pressure, someone who doesn't lose her head when things go wrong." He paused, looking at her. "Would you consider working for me?" Emma blinked in surprise. "Work for you?" "But I'm just a waitress." "Not anymore," he said simply. "I'll double your salary. You'll be my personal assistant. You've already proven you can handle stress better than most people in my office." Emma's heart raced. A job like that could change everything. Her mother's treatment, their bills, their life. But something inside her was scared. People like Adrian Blake didn't just offer jobs to people like her. "Sir, I don't think I'm qualified," she stammered. He smiled faintly. "You're more qualified than you think. Take some time to decide. Here's my card." He placed a white business card on the table. Emma picked it up slowly, staring at the embossed gold letters. Adrian Blake, CEO, Blake Holdings. It felt unreal. She thanked him politely and left the lounge, her mind spinning. As the elevator took her back down, she looked at the card again and whispered to herself, "Why me?" That night, Emma sat on her small bed, the card still in her hand. Her mother noticed and asked, "What's that?" Emma explained everything. Her mother listened quietly and then said, "Sometimes life gives us chances when we least expect them. Maybe this is yours." Emma didn't answer, but she thought about it all night. She imagined working in an office, earning more money, helping her mother recover faster. But she also feared the unknown. She had lived her whole life among ordinary people. What if she didn't belong in his world? The next morning, Emma went to the hotel as usual. She told herself she would think about it later. But as she walked into the restaurant, she saw a large bouquet of white lilies on the counter. Attached to it was a small note. "Thank you for saving my family. Adrian Blake." Emma's heart warmed. She smiled for the first time in days. She didn't know what to call it, kindness, fate, or luck, but something told her that her life was about to take a turn she never imagined. And though she didn't know it yet, this new path would bring her closer to the man whose voice still echoed in her dreams, and it would test her heart in ways she had never faced before. 3 days had passed since Emma received the flowers and the elegant white card from Adrian Blake, yet her mind was still restless. She kept the card in her small purse, sometimes taking it out just to stare at the golden letters. She didn't know why she hesitated. Maybe it was fear, maybe disbelief. Could someone like her really work for a billionaire? That morning the sun rose bright and soft, but Emma's heart was heavy. She served breakfast as usual, her thoughts far away. While refilling coffee cups, her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. It was the hotel manager, calling her to the office. She wiped her hands nervously and walked in. The manager looked serious but calm. "Emma," he said, "Mr. Blake called again. He wants to talk to you personally." Emma froze. "Now?" The manager nodded. "He said it's important." Her hands trembled as she picked up the hotel's phone. "Hello?" she said softly. The deep voice on the other end was warm but firm. "Emma, it's Adrian Blake. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Oh, no, sir," she said quickly. "I was just working." "I wanted to check if you've thought about my offer," he said. "I really meant it. I believe you have something rare, something I want in my team." Emma's voice faltered. "Sir, I'm honored, but I don't know much about business. I've never worked in an office." He chuckled lightly. "You'll learn. What matters to me is your heart, your courage. Money can't buy that." There was silence for a few seconds before Emma whispered, "All right, sir, I'll try." "Good," he said, sounding pleased. "I'll send a car for you tomorrow morning. Be ready at 9. When the call ended, Emma stood still for a moment, barely breathing. The manager grinned. "Looks like someone just got a promotion." Emma smiled weakly, still unsure if she had made the right choice. That night she told her mother. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I'm proud of you, Emma. Don't be afraid of change. You deserve this." Emma nodded, though her stomach twisted with nerves. The next morning she woke up early, her hands shaking as she buttoned her best blouse, a plain white one she had ironed 3 times. She tied her hair neatly and put on a little lip balm. When she stepped outside, a sleek black car was waiting by the road. The driver opened the door politely. "Miss Emma?" "Yes," she replied softly. The ride to Adrian's office felt like a dream. The city looked different through the tinted windows, bigger, brighter, more intimidating. When she arrived, the building took her breath away. It was tall, made of glass and steel, shining in the morning sun. Inside, people in suits walked quickly with files and phones in hand. The receptionist greeted her warmly and led her to Adrian's floor. The elevator doors opened to a wide office with large windows, soft grey walls and modern furniture. Adrian was standing by the window talking on the phone. When he saw her, he smiled and ended the call. "Welcome, Emma," he said. "You look nervous." "A little," she admitted. "Don't be," he said kindly. "I promised to take care of you, didn't I?" He showed her around, introducing her to the team. Some people smiled politely. Others looked curious. Emma could feel the difference in class, the way their eyes measured her plain clothes and simple manners. Still, she kept her head high. Adrian gave her a small office next to his. Her job was to organize his schedule, manage calls, and handle small tasks. It sounded easy, but everything felt new and strange. Computers, meetings, big words she barely understood. It was another world. Yet each time she felt lost, Adrian's calm voice would guide her. "You're doing fine," he'd say, smiling. "You learn faster than you think." Days turned into weeks, and slowly Emma began to adjust. She was quiet but observant. She noticed how Adrian treated his employees, with fairness but authority. He wasn't like most rich men she had seen on television. He listened, he cared, and he worked harder than anyone else. One afternoon, he asked her to join him for lunch in the company cafeteria. "You must be tired of eating alone," he said. She hesitated but agreed. As they ate, he asked her about her life, her mother, her dreams. No one had ever asked her those things before. "You've been through a lot," he said softly. "You deserve something better." Emma smiled shyly. "I just want peace, sir. A simple life. And maybe," he added, "you'll find more than that." She didn't understand what he meant then, but something about the way he looked at her made her heart flutter. As days passed, their conversations grew warmer. Sometimes he'd ask her opinion on business decisions, just to hear her honest view. She'd laugh and say, "I'm just a waitress, remember?" And he'd reply, "No, you're Emma, that's better." But not everyone approved. Some of Adrian's senior staff began to whisper. "She doesn't belong here," one woman said. "He's getting too close to her," another murmured. Emma heard the gossip but stayed silent. She didn't want trouble. Her only goal was to work hard and support her mother. Still, she couldn't deny that her heart beat faster whenever Adrian entered the room. She didn't want to fall for him, it was impossible. He was rich, powerful, and married, even if his wife was rarely around. But fate has its own plans. One rainy evening, as Emma was about to leave the office, Adrian appeared at her door. "Emma, wait," he said. "I just wanted to thank you again for everything you've done. Not just for my company, but for my family." She looked at him, unsure what to say. His eyes were tired but kind. "You remind me that there's still good in people," he added quietly. She smiled, her cheeks warm. "That's very kind of you, sir." He nodded. "Get home safe, Emma." As she stepped outside into the rain, she felt something change in her heart. It was small, gentle, but real. She told herself it was just admiration, but deep down she knew it was something more. What she didn't know was that their growing bond would soon be tested, and the quiet walls of his perfect world were about to crack in ways neither of them could imagine. Emma's new life at Blake Holdings felt like stepping into another universe. Every morning she entered the tall glass building, surrounded by people who spoke fast, dressed perfectly, and seemed to belong to a world she could only dream of. She still wore her plain blouses and simple skirts, always neat but never fashionable. At first people ignored her, but soon they began to notice how calm and reliable she was. Emma never complained, never bragged, and never joined in gossip. She focused only on her work, though her heart often pounded when Adrian walked by. He had a way of filling the room with quiet authority, and whenever he smiled at her, she felt her face grow warm. Adrian, too, started to notice things about her that others didn't. She listened when no one else did. She spoke softly but with honesty. She didn't flatter him like the others. In a world full of fake smiles, her simplicity was refreshing. One morning, during a board meeting, the projector stopped working. The technicians couldn't fix it, and everyone was getting impatient. Emma, who had been quietly taking notes, stepped forward, pressed a few buttons, and got it working again. The room fell silent. Adrian smiled proudly. "See? This is why I hired her," he said, and everyone laughed lightly. But one person didn't laugh. Liam Turner, Adrian's business partner and oldest friend. Liam had always been ambitious, sometimes too ambitious. He didn't like how much attention Adrian was giving to the new girl. To him, Emma was just a waitress playing secretary, and he couldn't understand why Adrian trusted her so much. That afternoon, as Emma was leaving the office, Liam stopped her near the elevator. "You must be quite proud of yourself," he said, his voice calm but cold. Emma blinked. "I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand." He smirked. "Winning the boss's heart already? You've only been here a few weeks." His tone was sharp, and Emma felt a chill. "I'm just doing my job," she said firmly and walked away. But the sting of his words stayed with her. That night, she sat at her small kitchen table, sipping tea and thinking about her day. She missed the peace of the hotel, the quiet mornings serving coffee. Life here was exciting, but it was also heavy. Every move she made was watched, judged, and whispered about. Still, she reminded herself why she was here, to help her mother and build a better future. The next morning, Adrian noticed she seemed quieter. "Is something wrong?" he asked. Emma shook her head quickly. "No, sir. Just tired." "Emma," he said softly, "if anyone bothers you, you can tell me. You're part of this team." His kindness made her heart ache a little. No one had ever cared that much before. Over the next few weeks, they grew closer. Sometimes he'd ask her to join him for coffee breaks, and they'd talk about ordinary things, music, food, or how she used to dream of becoming a nurse before life forced her to work. Adrian found her company peaceful. She made him forget about endless meetings and fake smiles. For the first time in years, he laughed, not the polite laugh he gave to investors, but a real warm laugh that came from somewhere deep inside. But rumors spread quickly. People began whispering about them in the hallways. "Did you see how he looks at her?" one employee said. "She must be after his money," another added. Emma heard everything, but she stayed quiet. She didn't want trouble, and she didn't want to lose her job. Adrian, however, noticed the change in her eyes, the way she avoided his gaze, the way her voice trembled when she said good morning. One evening, after everyone had left, he called her to his office. "Emma," he said, "I know people have been talking. I'm sorry you have to deal with that." She looked down at her hands. "It's okay, sir. I'm used to it. People always talk about those who have less." He frowned. "You don't deserve that." "It doesn't matter," she said gently. "I know who I am." Her strength moved him deeply. "You're remarkable, Emma," he said. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel small." She smiled, but deep inside her heart was beating faster. She could see something different in his eyes, something that scared her. Respect, admiration, and something more. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to convince herself it was just gratitude he felt, nothing else. He was married, rich and powerful. She was just an employee. Still, she couldn't forget the way his voice softened when he said her name. The next morning she arrived early to work, hoping to keep her distance. But fate had other plans. Adrian's wife, Sophia, visited the office that day with their baby boy. Everyone gathered to greet her. She was elegant, kind, and gentle. Emma smiled, admiring her from afar. But as Sophia spoke to Adrian, Emma saw something in the billionaire's eyes. Conflict. His marriage looked perfect on the outside, but beneath the surface there was distance, a quiet sadness that no one spoke of. When Sophia left, Adrian stood by the window, watching the car drive away. Emma brought him his coffee and said softly, "You have a beautiful family, sir." He nodded slowly. "Yes, I do," he replied, but his voice sounded hollow. The silence between them felt heavy. She wanted to say something comforting, but words failed her. Instead, she just placed the cup on his desk and turned to leave. "Emma," he said suddenly. She stopped. "Thank you for always being here." She smiled faintly. "That's my job, sir." But as she walked out, both of them knew it was more than that. The bond between them was growing, unspoken yet undeniable. And though neither dared to admit it, their hearts were slowly stepping into dangerous territory, one that neither money nor rules could control. Weeks passed quickly, and Emma had grown into her new role with quiet confidence. Adrian trusted her completely. She managed his meetings, handled his calls, and even organized an important charity event that impressed everyone. But the more successful she became, the more Liam's jealousy grew. He couldn't stand how Adrian praised her. To him, Emma was a threat, not because of her work, but because of the quiet bond forming between her and Adrian. Liam had known Adrian for years, through good times and bad. He had stood by him in business, but lately he felt replaced. The sight of Emma walking into Adrian's office every morning filled him with anger. One evening, after most employees had left, Liam went into Adrian's office, pretending to look for a file. He noticed Adrian's expensive watch lying on the desk, a rare piece worth thousands of dollars. A wicked thought crossed his mind. He picked it up, slipped it into his pocket, and smiled coldly. The next morning, chaos began. Adrian came in early looking for his watch. "It was right here yesterday," he said, frowning. Everyone searched the office. Emma helped too, opening drawers, moving papers, checking shelves. "I can't find it anywhere, sir," she said softly. Adrian sighed. "Strange. I never misplaced that watch." Liam appeared at the door, pretending to look concerned. "Maybe someone took it," he said quietly, glancing at Emma. "After all, not everyone here earns much." Emma froze, feeling the blood drain from her face. "Are you suggesting I took it?" she asked, her voice trembling. Liam shrugged. "I'm not suggesting anything. But you were the last one in this office last night, weren't you?" Adrian looked at her, confused. "Emma, were you?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I left the reports on your desk before going home." The air in the room grew heavy. Adrian's eyes softened, but doubt flickered inside them. "Emma, I don't want to believe this," he said carefully, "but you know how serious this is." Tears filled her eyes. "Sir, I didn't take anything." "I would never." Liam sighed dramatically. "Maybe we should check her bag just to be sure." Emma's hands shook. She felt humiliated but said, "Fine, check it." The security guard opened her small handbag. There was nothing inside except her phone, a notebook, and a photo of her mother. "See?" she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't do it." But Adrian still looked troubled. "Emma, I need some time to think about this," he said quietly. His words hit her harder than any accusation. She blinked back tears and whispered, "You don't trust me, do you?" He didn't answer. He just looked away. Emma gathered her things and walked out, her chest tight with pain. The moment she stepped into the elevator, tears streamed down her cheeks. She had worked so hard to earn his trust, and now it was gone. When she reached home, her mother saw her pale face and asked, "What happened?" Emma tried to speak but couldn't. She simply shook her head and went to her room. That night she cried silently, clutching the photo of her mother. "I should have never dreamed too high," she whispered to herself. "People like me don't belong in their world." Meanwhile, at the office, Adrian sat alone, staring at the empty space on his desk. Something about the situation didn't feel right. Emma wasn't the kind of person who'd steal. She had too much dignity. The next day, the truth began to surface. Liam's assistant overheard him on the phone, trying to sell a luxury watch to a private buyer. Suspicious, she reported it to the accounting head. Soon the matter reached Adrian. His eyes darkened with anger. He confronted Liam in his office. "Where's my watch?" he demanded. Liam tried to laugh it off. "Adrian, you think I'd steal from you?" But Adrian's glare was sharp. "Don't lie to me. I trusted you." Liam's face turned pale. "All right, fine," he muttered. "I needed money. It was just a watch. I was going to return it." "You ruined someone's life," Adrian snapped. "Do you realize what you've done to Emma?" Liam opened his mouth to speak, but Adrian raised his hand. "Get out! You're finished here." Security escorted Liam out of the building, his face red with shame. Adrian immediately called Emma, but she didn't answer. He tried again and again, his heart heavy with guilt. The next morning, he drove to her apartment himself. It was a small old building on the quiet side of town. He climbed the narrow stairs and knocked on her door. Emma opened it slowly, surprised to see him there. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "Sir?" she said softly. Adrian took a deep breath. "Emma, I was wrong. You didn't steal anything. Liam did. I fired him." Emma blinked, not sure she heard right. "You found out?" He nodded. "I should have trusted you. I'm sorry, Emma, truly." She looked down, tears filling her eyes again, but this time from relief. "You hurt me," she said quietly. "You believed them over me." Adrian stepped closer. "I know. And I'll spend as long as it takes to earn your trust back." For a long moment they just stood there, the silence heavy with emotion. Then Emma finally nodded. "All right," she whispered. "But I'm not coming back for your money, sir. I'm coming back because I still believe there are good people in this world." Adrian smiled faintly. "Then I'll prove you're right." That day marked a turning point. The shadows of doubt had broken something between them, but also revealed something stronger. Beneath all the hurt and misunderstanding, there was respect, compassion, and something slowly turning into love. Neither of them said it aloud, but both could feel it. Sometimes trust has to be shattered before the heart truly learns who's worth keeping. Days turned into weeks after Liam's betrayal, but the memory of that painful moment still lingered in Emma's heart. She had returned to work, yet something inside her had changed. She spoke less, smiled less, and avoided eye contact with Adrian whenever she could. She still did her duties with care, but the warmth that once lit her presence was gone. Adrian noticed it every day. He watched her from his office window as she moved quietly through the halls, always polite but distant. He had fixed the mistake, but her trust was still broken. And that hurt him more than anything. One afternoon, after a long meeting, Adrian asked her to bring him the project files. When she entered, he stood by the window, lost in thought. "Emma," he said softly, "you've been avoiding me." She froze. "No, sir, I've just been busy." He turned around. "You don't have to call me sir all the time." She looked down. "It's more respectful. Respect is earned, not forced," he said gently. "And I don't deserve it after what I did to you." She sighed. "It's not about deserving, Mr. Blake, it's about moving on." He smiled sadly. "Have you?" Her silence answered for her. Before he could say more, his phone rang. He answered quickly, but his face changed as he listened. "What, when?" he said sharply. Emma watched his expression turn from calm to worry. "I'll be there right away." He ended the call and turned to her. "My wife, she's missing. She took the baby and disappeared." Emma's eyes widened. "What? Why?" "I don't know," he said, grabbing his coat. "She left a note. She said she needs space, but something feels wrong." Without hesitation, Emma followed him. "You shouldn't go alone," she said. "Let me help." He nodded once, grateful for her presence. Together they drove through the night, searching the places Sophia loved. The beach house, the park, the hospital where she gave birth. But there was no sign of her. Hours passed. The city lights blurred through the rain as they stopped at a roadside diner. Adrian rested his hands on the table, exhausted. "I don't understand," he said. "She's been distant lately, but I thought we were fine." Emma sat quietly, thinking. "Maybe she felt unseen," she said softly. "Sometimes people hide pain even when they seem strong." Adrian looked at her. "You sound like you've lived it." She smiled faintly. "Maybe I have." Their eyes met for a moment that felt too long, too deep. Then his phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. It said, "If you want to see your wife and child again, come alone." Adrian's face went pale. "This isn't her," he whispered. Emma leaned forward. "What does it mean?" He showed her the message. "Someone's taken them." Fear shot through both of them. Adrian immediately called his security head, but the number was blocked. "We can trace it," Emma said. "There's a tech team at the office. Let's go back." Within an hour they were in his private security room, watching the team trace the message. The signal led to an abandoned warehouse outside the city. Adrian clenched his jaw. "I'm going." Emma grabbed his arm. "You can't go alone. It's dangerous." They said alone. "Then I'll wait nearby," she insisted. He didn't argue. At the warehouse, the wind howled through broken windows. Adrian stepped inside, his footsteps echoing. A voice came from the shadows. "You came." It was Liam. He looked worn out, desperate, but his eyes still burned with envy. "You ruined my life, Adrian. I lost everything. So now you'll know how it feels." "Where are they, Liam?" Adrian demanded. Liam smiled bitterly. "Safe for now. Unless you do something stupid." Adrian took a step forward. "You don't have to do this." "Oh, I think I do," Liam said, holding up a gun. Just then a faint noise came from behind. Emma had followed him quietly and now crouched near the door, her heart pounding. She saw the gun and froze. She didn't know what to do, but she couldn't let Adrian get hurt. "Liam, please," Adrian said, raising his hands. "You were my friend." "I was your shadow," Liam snapped. "Always second. Always less." His hand trembled as he pointed the gun. Emma suddenly grabbed a metal rod from the floor and threw it toward the wall, creating a loud crash. Liam turned his head for a split second, and Adrian rushed forward, tackling him. The gun fired, the sound echoing painfully. Emma screamed. The gun dropped and slid across the floor. Liam struggled, but Adrian overpowered him. The security team burst in moments later. having tracked Adrian's location through his car. They arrested Liam, who shouted curses as he was dragged away. Adrian stood up, his arm bleeding from a small graze. Emma ran to him, tears in her eyes. "You're hurt." He smiled weakly. "Just a scratch." "You could have died," she whispered, her voice shaking. He looked at her and said softly, "You saved my life, Emma." She shook her head. "You saved your wife and child. That's what matters." The police found Sophia and the baby unharmed in a nearby room, frightened but safe. When Sophia saw Adrian, she ran into his arms. Emma stood back, watching silently. Her heart felt heavy and relieved at the same time. Later that night, as the ambulance took Sophia for a checkup, Adrian turned to Emma. "You should rest," he said. "You've been through enough," she nodded. "I'm glad they're safe." He looked like he wanted to say something more, but instead he whispered, "Thank you." As Emma watched him walk away, she knew something had changed forever. She had stepped into a part of his world she could never truly belong to, and though her heart wanted to stay near him, her mind whispered, it was time to leave. Sometimes love means saving someone, and then walking away before the world notices your tears. The sun rose quietly over the city, painting the sky with soft shades of gold and pink, but Emma's heart felt heavy as stone. It had been 2 days since the warehouse incident, and everything around her had changed. Sophia and the baby were safe. Liam was behind bars, and the media had started calling it the Billionaire's family rescue. Yet in all the noise and praise, Emma felt invisible again. She had decided it was time to leave. That morning she packed her few belongings into a small bag, folded her uniform neatly, and placed her resignation letter on her desk. She looked around the office one last time, her eyes tracing the desk where she used to sit, the window where sunlight always fell on the papers, and the coffee cup Adrian had once handed her during long evenings of work. Every corner held a memory, small but powerful. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you." "For everything." She walked to the elevator, her heart thudding faster with every step. But as the doors opened, Adrian was standing there, as if fate had brought him at the very moment she was leaving. He looked at the bag in her hand, then at her eyes. "You're leaving," he said softly. Emma nodded. "Yes, sir. Don't call me that," he said quickly. "Not now." She hesitated, her voice trembling. "Mr. Blake, you don't need me anymore. Your family needs you. Everything is fine now." He stepped closer. "Everything except you walking away." She took a small breath. "It's better this way. People already talk. And I can't keep pretending this doesn't hurt." His eyes softened, full of emotion. "Emma, you've done more for me than anyone ever has. You stood by me when I doubted you. You saved my wife, my son, and my life. I can't just let you disappear." She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "You're kind, but you belong to a world I can never be part of. I'm just a waitress who was lucky to meet a good man." Adrian smiled sadly. "There's more than that, Emma. You're the reason I started believing in goodness again." For a moment, silence filled the hallway, thick with all the words they wanted to say but couldn't. She looked down, fighting her tears. "If I stay, people will misunderstand. Your wife, your employees, they'll think something that isn't true." "And what if it is true?" he asked quietly. She froze. "What?" He took another step closer. "What if it's true that I've fallen for you?" Her breath caught. The world seemed to stop moving. "Don't," she whispered. "You don't mean that." "I do," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "But I also know it's wrong. I have responsibilities. A family, and you. You deserve someone who can love you freely." Her eyes glistened with tears. "Then let me go before it hurts more." He nodded slowly, his heart aching. "I don't want to, but I will, because I respect you." They stood there, staring at each other for what felt like forever. Finally, she reached out her hand and said softly, "Goodbye, Adrian." He took her hand gently, holding it as if it was something fragile he never wanted to lose. "Goodbye, Emma, thank you. For everything." She smiled through her tears and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, she whispered under her breath, "Take care of yourself." When the elevator descended, Adrian stood there motionless, listening to the soft hum fading into silence. He felt a hollowness he couldn't describe, a mix of gratitude, loss, and love that would never be spoken again. Later that evening, he went home to find Sophia sitting by the window with the baby. She looked up and said quietly, "She left, didn't she?" He nodded. "Yes." Sophia smiled gently. "She was brave and honest. You were lucky to meet someone like her." He sat beside her and whispered, "I know." Months passed. The company recovered, the scandal faded, and life seemed normal again. But every time Adrian walked into his office, he still half expected to see Emma sitting there, smiling faintly, ready to help. Sometimes he caught himself staring at the empty desk, remembering her laughter, her kindness, her strength. Meanwhile, far away in a quiet town, Emma had found a new job at a small cafe.